Hello and welcome to GamePass Gaming. I'm your host Flap, and joining us tonight, as always, in the co-hosting hot seat, we have Mr. Puxley. How the devil are you?
I am very well, thank you very much. How are you?
Yes, I am very good, thank you. It's been a bit of a crazy week. I don't suppose there's many people listening to this that don't know what's happened, so we won't bore you with what's happened, even though it's absolutely fantastic news for most Xbox fans. But yeah, we've got lots to get our teeth into tonight. But before we do, let's introduce everyone else on the panel. So Green Pass Gaming Podcast regular, VJ, how are you, sir?
I'm all good, thank you. Now that I'm back on the show this Sunday, so yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Excellent. Yeah, we've got two topics tonight, and they might be a bit hard hitting. Well, one might potentially be a bit hard hitting, so we'll see how that pans out. And we've got two guests tonight, pan-European guests, in fact. So first up, we have Flemish. Welcome to the show, sir. First time.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. Also, I'm called the Belgium sensation from across the nation. So thanks to clowns. Yeah, but I'm happy to be here, and topics look so interesting and so good. So let's get into it.
Excellent. Yes, I'm very much looking forward to these. I do try and pose fairly wide open topics that we can sort of really sink our teeth into. So, and last but certainly by no means least, we have Archimedes. Hello, sir. How are you? You've had a bit of a week, haven't you?
Yeah, indeed, I have. Thank you so much for having me. We've been talking about this for a while, me coming here to the show, and now it's finally the time, and I'm really happy to be here. Thank you for the invite.
Yeah, that's not a problem. Yeah, this one's been on the cards for a little while, hasn't it? So
yeah,
it's great to have you on the show. So yeah, no, thank you for being here. I'm so grateful for everyone that says yes to coming on this show, because it's so nice to have a variety of different sort of views and opinions. And I know we're kind of all batting for the same team, as it were, with regard to sort of Xbox and stuff. But we can be critical of them as and when we need to be, and obviously the competition. So let's go quickly around. Let's just see what we've all been playing quickly, because this is a show about gaming, and it'd be silly if we didn't talk about the games we've been playing. So let's go to you, Flemish. So yeah, what have you been playing this week?
Hades. Hades is a game that's been out for a long time in early access, but came out fully like I think a week ago or 2 weeks ago. Had like a discount going on. I was like, hey, let's check this game out. And so awesome for a roguelike. It's like one of my best indies I ever played. So yeah.
Excellent. Well, I think Luke Steele was playing that on last week's show as well. You mentioned that. Are you on the Switch or are you on the PC version?
No, the PC version. I think
Nice.
the Switch is a little bit too not fluid enough for me.
Okay, no, fair enough. Well, Archimedes, you've had a recent accident, unfortunately. I hope your foot's okay, but I also hope that this might give you a chance to get some gaming in, my friend. What have you been playing this week?
Yeah, thank you. The painkillers really help. So, no, but by the way, if I'm talking bullshit today here on the show, I apologize up front. No, I've been getting quite a bit of gaming time. I continued the Avengers campaign, really having a blast there. I also started with the Super Mario 3D All-Star Collection with
Nice.
Sunshine, and now I started Mario 64. And in between, I always jump back into Tony Hawk. I just can't put that game down.
Oh, I've not delved into Tony Hawk. I mean, I played the originals several times over. Absolutely loved them, and I've not dived into that yet, so I must do that. I've just had a payday as well, so I've got no excuse not to go and buy it right now, to be honest. So yeah, I think I'll do that. Actually, yeah, you've tempted me again.
It's a fantastic remake. I highly recommend it.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that. Have they done a good job?
You couldn't ask for a better remake.
Excellent.
Really, they kept that spirit that made the original games so incredible. Even the original soundtracks are in there, but remastered. So they sound modern. They added a few very fantastic songs there. Graphics look top notch, but you still have that fantastic and satisfying feeling of Tony Hawk. It's really an incredible remake.
Were Neversoft involved in it at all? Were they involved in the remake?
Good question. You caught me here off guard.
I'll look into it. I'll look into it. Pux, what have you been up to, my friend?
So yeah, similar to Archimedes actually, I've been playing some Super Mario 3D All Stars, playing Mario Sunshine, of which I've actually finished earlier this week, which was cool. And I've also been diving back into Rocket League since it went free to play. I primarily played it on Switch from 2017, and I'm now playing it on PC. As I say, it's gone free to play, so that's been quite fun to dive into. Playing some 3v3 ranked on that.
Excellent. That's good. What else? We was playing tonight, last night, actually, wasn't we?
Yeah, we was involved in Mr. Tushy's community game night. Thank you again for having us, Mr. T. I see you in the chat. We was playing some golf with friends, which was a good laugh.
Well, we got bailed out, didn't we? To just quickly go through the story of how we got bailed out in the end, because you're on PC and we were all playing on Xbox, and we golf with friends wasn't cross-platform, was it? But we came up with a cheeky little way around it.
Yeah, Golf with Friends isn't cross-play. I'm a PC player for my Xbox experience. We thought we might have to play something else, and then we got saved by Xbox Cloud Gaming. I was playing on my phone with the other guys, all on Xbox, and it actually worked seemingly well. Like there was no issues whatsoever.
Yeah, it was a real good lifesaver, that one. It was sort of, I think one of us thought, hey, how about xCloud? We'll give it a go. And it just worked. We was in the party, we all played together, and no, it was brilliant. It was good.
Yeah, it was good fun.
VJ, what have you been up to, my friend?
Not much, really. I've been on too many podcasts, I think, this week. So.
Yes, you are one of the busiest people I know in the Xbox podcasting scene, I've got to be honest.
I try to keep people entertained.
Well, I've been playing. I had a bit of a dabble in Fallout 76, which is obviously what we got playing here. I didn't enjoy it too much. For me, I recorded an hour's worth and thought that's probably about all this game gets out of me, to be honest. So I wasn't too hot on Fallout 76, although I do love Fallout games, to be honest. So it's not the fact it's Fallout; it was the whole sort of MMO bit I didn't enjoy. What else have I been playing? Oh, I've been putting a lot of time in We Happy Few as well. I don't know why I've just come to that game. I was lucky enough to be on one of the beta testing programs really a long time ago, actually. And I didn't go much on it at the time. I never picked it up when it went live. And yeah, I've been having a blast with that. So I really enjoyed that. So I just thought I'd give a Compulsions game a go. Just to get excited for what might be coming up from them, to be honest. And that kind of neatly leads us into topic number one. But before I do, I just want to give a quick shout out to the chat. Thank you to everyone in the chat. It's great to see you guys there. Double Dealer, Wakanda, UK Dazarus, Fugly, Stubbs. It's just so many people. Cole Smith, Mr. Tushy, really appreciate you being there. Got some great topics. We've got a giveaway tonight as well. We're giving away 3 months worth of Game Pass Ultimate. We've got Wakanda Xbox News Today to thank for that. So thank you very much, my friend, for that. I think what we're going to try and do is the 300th comment in the live chat. If we can get that far, will be the winner of the 3-month Gold Game Pass. And that's in celebration of us hitting 300 YouTube subs this week. So I'm really grateful for everyone that subbed us.
Congratulations here.
Yeah, thank you very much. We're 9 weeks old, so we're making some pretty good progress. We're really pleased. It surprised us both. But right, let's get our teeth into this. So Xbox has no games. That's the narrative we're all used to as Xbox fans, and it's normally a sort of grenade that's lobbed from the other side of the fence, shall we say. But obviously this week on Monday, with Microsoft buying and spending $7.5 billion, and that is a big number, to bring their first-party titles up to 23. Surely that Xbox has no games narrative is now dead. I know there's still probably a long way to go before these games actually start turning up, but it's in the pipeline. They are coming, and we've seen things like Fable and Avowed. You know, they are coming. We've just got to wait the time. And I'm coming to you first, Archimedes, if that's okay.
Sure. With
23 studios, do you think Microsoft might have a little less appetite for third-party exclusives, seeing as that their first party is so comprehensive now? Is third-party exclusive something that they can kind of move on from? And if so, it's kind of a two-part question. If they do you think that leaves the door open for Sony to sort of go in and start hoovering up some third-party exclusives? Or is that still going to exist in the Xbox lineup?
It's a very good question. And I start with the second one. Because I think that might be the main reason why Microsoft won't give up on third-party exclusives, to not leave them to Sony on the table at all. But on the other hand, it's getting crowded, especially in Game Pass, because it's always a question: how do you handle third-party exclusives? The whole narrative from Microsoft is Game Pass at the moment. Yeah, the value of Game Pass, and if you sign a deal with whatever third-party publisher for an exclusivity deal, they kind of have to bring that game also into Game Pass, and that might cost them a little extra. So the way I see it right now, it is for Microsoft becoming more and more difficult to get these third-party deals. They might get so expensive at this point, bringing them also into Game Pass, that they rather decide to invest into new studios or developers, hiring talents from other studios and so on. Because in the end, it's always the question you have to ask: how can they improve and gain more subscribers to Game Pass? And these third-party exclusive deals really become, like I said, a little bit more difficult for them with that whole subscription service. That being said, with 23 studios, I've had an interesting discussion about that today on Twitter. If we think about it, almost every studio that Microsoft owns has at least 2 teams that work on 2 games. So that makes round about 35 to 40 games that are right now in development for Xbox, the Xbox ecosystem. And if you think about a dev cycle of 3 to 5 years per game, that leaves you still with, let's say, something in between 6 to 10 games per year. That's at least every second month a major release from a first-party studio into Game Pass, at least, if not even more. So the question really is, do they need those third-party exclusive deals with having so much content coming to Game Pass? We will see. I think the biggest thing for them at the moment is that they don't want to have those big IPs going all to Sony and the marketing rights for them. So yeah, we will see. But I expect that it is for Microsoft just getting too expensive to get third-party exclusives. They rather focus on marketing deals there.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, and perhaps they will going forwards. I always assumed that it was going to be business as usual, and I'm coming to you next, VJ, if that's okay.
Yep.
I assumed it was going to be business as usual for Microsoft and Xbox with regards to hoovering up these third-party exclusives, and like you say, perhaps they still need to do that to stop Sony going in and hoovering them up. I mean, VJ, if you think about Insomniac and people like that, if they do one absolute stellar game for Sony, they're going to want to snap them up, aren't they? So do you think Microsoft is still going to be committed to third-party exclusives?
I think it just depends on what it is, really. I mean, just looking at the ZeniMax deal and watching Phil, his body language and how he's talking at the moment, I think Microsoft had an existing sort of very strong relationship with Bethesda, and correct me if I'm wrong, especially during the 360 days. And the amount of money that's going to exchange, right, hands next year is just going to cement that deal on a permanent basis. Xbox wanted the power narrative. They've got it. They wanted the price narrative, and they seemingly have it. And now they've got the studio narrative as well. And look, you know my cynicism and my approach to all of these topics that I have, and I'm kind of well known for it. So for me, when I see that from an American company, and especially on the history of Microsoft, it's kind of their ego and philosophy of Microsoft and US corporations in general. To be honest with you, that's on parade. You've got to take into account that I think that with ZeniMax and the situation with Halo, a lot of the community were hankering, right, for something to happen, and going to buy an exclusive, get Cyberpunk in, and so on and so forth. Microsoft are thinking way longer term than us guys, right? They think 5 to 10 years ahead on everything that they're doing, and they had to do, I think, whatever was necessary so not to be left behind again, because Halo was such a disaster. And if you look at Google and Amazon, right, they've made their gaming intentions pretty pretty clear, right? So I think that I think we was on Boom's channel about 3 or 4 weeks ago when Boom asked us, with Warner Brothers out of the way, who would everybody go for? And ZeniMax was my choice. It just made complete and utter sense. I'm going to explain why. Because I think that definitely Microsoft sped up their acquisition of ZeniMax, considering, Google and Amazon on the horizon, right? They're the other ones that have got the money to do so. I don't just say them. Many companies do have the funding right now. And from ZeniMax's point of view, they've had investors deep into the company for 10 years. And normally, if you're a VC or a venture capitalist or a hedge fund, you look to exit within 5 to 10 years. So I think the investors did well, right, to exit, and it was about time. Maybe an IPO would have served ZeniMax better, but we just don't know the state of the company's internals, right? Because I don't think that Microsoft have just gone in and bought studios and so on and so forth. I think there's far more to it than just that. And you just have to look at the was it Fallout 74, which was just on your screen rolling?
76, yeah.
Didn't go very well. It was pretty lackluster, right? And the public events that have been hosted by Todd Howard, in the recent years, they haven't been well received, I would just put it politely. So it's understandable for the investors to exit when the opportunity arises, and they have no emotion, towards this kind of thing. Microsoft definitely paid a premium for ZeniMax, in my opinion. The premium, no doubt, was in the form of a big number on the balance sheet right next to goodwill. So then that leads us to Phil, right? Because what Xbox have got, and I'm hearing from a lot of people, and just from common sense, basically, it's an immediate back catalogue of some classic IP, if not iconic, right? In terms of Doom, Skyrim, and Fallout, and plus the potential of Starfield is the one particular game that I'm looking forward to. I watched Phil being questioned about exclusivity on CNN and Fox, and he was pretty non-committal but relaxed. But for me, some of those IPs are iconic and part of pop culture, and they've sort of formed a very part of the historic tapestry of gaming itself. I guess we will know if Phil truly believes in the value he speaks of, right? Or if it's just a charade, right? Based on his recent quote, which I think it was something along the lines of, I find it completely counter to what gaming is about, and to force someone to buy my specific device on that day, and I want them to go buy it in order to partake in what gaming is about. Gaming is bigger than any one device, and I think when the time comes, Phil will make the call, right, based on where the Xbox subscribers are at, and taking into account various other forecasts, 2 to 3 years down the line. And I think that'll have a big say, also depending on where the games that Bethesda has in development as well, in terms of whether they go and do more deals. And as Box and Archimedes just said, right, if they really do have multiple teams amongst their studios, that's already a huge amount of content to deal with. And I think that they're doing that because if you look at Nintendo and Sony, they try not to rely on third-party deals or third-party developers because it costs a lot of money.
Is that true? Where does Insomniac fit into that then?
I think Insomniac, in terms of an acquisition, I mean, they worked with Sony for 25 years, right?
They did at the beginning. Insomniac worked with Xbox, didn't they, and bought Sunset Overdrive and things like that.
That was
so they were
in the middle, right? And that's when that's sort of going off track a little bit for me, because obviously they worked with Sony. Sony worked with them on Resistance and so on and so forth. Sony parked them. Microsoft went in, did Sunset Overdrive, and then walked away. And then then they sort of hobbled around doing a few other bits and pieces until Sony dropped in and said, hey, we've got Spider-Man. And then obviously the rest is history. But what I'm saying, though, execs don't really care about from what I'm seeing, and not just in this industry, execs don't care about backtracking or contradicting themselves. So before I finish answering your question, I have a question for the panel. Will it be the first set of gaming IP in the modern era that have traditionally been multi-format that now go exclusive? Is Xbox going to one-up Sony in this category as well, I guess, is the question.
And that's a very good question. And let's pose that around because, it feels like we're at the dawn of a new age, to be honest. And I know that sounds a little bit sort of overblown and overstated, but it genuinely does, because I don't think anyone's been in the situation that Microsoft's in right now. So let's pose that question. Puxley, come to you next. And it's a very simple question. The Xbox has no games narrative. Is that now dead or not, in your opinion?
I did sympathize with people that would say this, and I did understand where they were coming from when I really started to think about it. considering that, especially when you consider the launch lineup, Halo Infinite was no longer a launch title, and there was a lot of questions being raised as to what's coming out on Xbox now, then, apart from our back catalogue of Xbox One and other games. But I think that's all. I mean, I would argue that's kind of the case of the PlayStation side anyway. And with this recent acquisition of all these studios, I no longer think that the whole Xbox games is dead narrative is a thing. I think it is dead. Sorry, is probably the best way to answer it. Now, as what VJ was saying, I mean, a lot of people online on the Twitter sphere were saying that they don't foresee. Well, I say that it was a bit of a mixed bag actually. So there was one side of the camp saying that things like Fallout and Elder Scrolls could not possibly become Xbox exclusives because they're much beloved by too many people. There's the other side of the fence where they've said, well, hold on a minute, Microsoft have paid $7.5 billion to acquire all of these companies. Why would they not make it exclusive? Why would you not prioritize that onto your own platform and reap the rewards from it? So from what I've been reading and seeing and just generally thinking about, I originally was of the mindset of I can't see why they would, push PS5 gamers out the gate and say, well, we shouldn't let you miss out on these titles, so we'll give it to you. But then start thinking about it a bit more, and then from what I just said, start to come back into it, and I go, well, actually, hold on a minute. Microsoft have bought these companies out; they own them. Why the hell would you let PlayStation 5 players play this? So almost to answer VJ's question as well, I think I do see these titles in the future becoming Xbox and PC exclusive.
Yeah, completely agree. I do. They need a reason. They need an absolute reason for people to buy Game Pass. And as great value as it is at the moment, and it's got 15 million users on board, the more content you have, the more people you're going to get on board. It has to work that way round, doesn't it? You need to dangle the carrot, as in content, before people will follow and get on board. Completely agree. Flemish, we're coming to you next, if that's okay, my friend. But Pux, what's happening in the chat? Can we just have a quick catch up?
Yeah, there's been a few comments. Comment here from SX2. Thanks for tuning in. They say, I think we'll likely see third-party exclusives continue, but likely when it comes to indie games rather than big AAA. I think MS were already moving away from these before the acquisition.
That's an interesting point.
Another comment here.
Yeah. Well, what was the last big third-party exclusive? I suppose depends if we mean timed exclusive, I guess, because the medium could be argued that it's obviously a timed exclusive, I suppose. But
no, my question was, when was the last big multi-format title to go exclusive?
Well, you could argue Spider-Man was one. Because the Spider-Man IP was released.
Archimedes, that was acquired by that was Activision, right? That license was acquired by a different company who then made it exclusive. It wasn't a multi-format title prior, right?
Yeah, that's true.
For me, that would be Final Fantasy VII Remake. Actually, that's like
that's only time. We're talking about Microsoft buying a company. We're taking iconic IP that have been multi-format for 20 years. Still remains with the same company, but now go exclusive. I can't think of one.
No, I can't.
And that goes completely against Phil's philosophy, if going forward. So I don't know if you mind me just carrying on, Flap.
Yeah, we need to hand to Flemish, but go on.
Yeah, no, go on. Go. I'll
Go with your point, because we'll hand to Flemish after you've done that. Go on.
So if Bethesda games are all exclusive, right, and to Xbox and PlayStation, I can't see PlayStation 5 owners trading in their machines to play these games. Some will be pretty upset.
But they don't have to. They just need a mobile phone and a Game Pass subscription.
Exactly. But you can't experience those games on a mobile phone. I'm sorry. If you want to play those games like Fallout and so on and so forth, you should be playing them on the hardware, right, that they're designed for.
Okay.
And that number that is forecasted in terms of the people that won't buy that game for $70 each will be factor into Phil's decision, right? And if you want to take something away, right, and if you're still adamant that absolutely all those games from ZeniMax should be exclusive, and if you're still starstruck by the Bethesda deal, then let me leave you with this sort of elementary calculation, right? So Bethesda sold, I think it was around 45 million units of software on this generation of systems. 50% of those sales, if not more, were on PC and Xbox. And as an example, Skyrim I think that was one of the big games, right, with their biggest IP. Sold 73% of its 30 million units on PC and Xbox. Only 27% of those were on PlayStation. So this generation, PlayStation has sold almost 1.2 billion units of software. Bethesda's games account for less than 1.9% of Sony's total software sales.
So you're saying that this isn't much of a dent for Sony's kind of lineup then?
Well, the thing is, what I'm saying to you is that you've got to factor that in, right? And if there's a cascading effect that sends out ripples beyond this, I don't know or what they are. My brain's not my brain's not that expansive. Only Sony and Microsoft will know.
Yeah, okay.
It's a very interesting point. May I add something here? Because you're absolutely right. This is an. I didn't know about those numbers. I figured about or thought about something else in this whole narrative. Microsoft is always talking about 3 billion gamers that they want to reach. Now they have potential customers on the PlayStation side, 100 million, 120 million potential customers there. Take away those who own multiple gaming systems from those, yeah. They only have a certain amount of potential customers there. And going forward, they will really, really extend xCloud. We are always thinking about xCloud right now playing on our phones, but the smart TV app is coming and you will be able to stream to your PC as well. So all you need is a display. Yeah, basically you can use every display. And then the new Elder Scrolls comes out. If you don't want to buy the Xbox console, you won't have to play the next Elder Scrolls on your phone. You can play that on basically every device that has a display by then. And since they are aiming for those 3 billion gamers that they are always talking about, I think the 100 million PlayStation customers that might potentially buy the game is not the number they are really, really concerned about. It's more for them, how can we draw them into our ecosystem? So I think they will definitely go exclusive. Yeah.
Okay, that's kind of bleeding into our second topic, I guess, a little bit. And the second topic is Sony's current business model relevant anymore? And that's more from a cloud gaming perspective, but it does overlap with what we've been saying. But let's go to Flemish on this topic at the moment. Do you think that these games aren't playable on xCloud? So if all the Bethesda lineup were to go exclusive, do you think they're not really playable on xCloud for people that didn't want to buy a Microsoft machine?
Everything is basically playable on xCloud. That's not like, except for playing with a mouse, of course, because that's a whole different ballpark. But like every console game is playable on xCloud.
But is it an enjoyable enough experience for people to actually stick with it?
I mean, we're just having a phone, like having to buy a clip. I think some people will be too lazy to actually do that. Like, I see there is this experiment on xCloud with like Hellblade that you can actually play with your phone alone. But I think they want to explore a little bit more like that as well, like to see what they can do, like just playing on your phone. For like story-based games, but like the actual normal games that we play, like Gears of War 5 and other like multiplayer-based games that you have to have a control for, I guess it's still a little bit of a hassle because your phone is pretty small. I mean, if you don't have a clip, how are you going to put it sideways against a box or something? Just play on the table. I think it's not comfortable enough. I don't do it myself. I tried a little bit, but for me personally, I would never do it.
So do you think Microsoft are forcing people? So, if there are Sony PlayStation fans out there that don't currently own an Xbox, do you think that kind of forces them to at least pay for a Series S to play these games, properly?
No, of course. I mean, you have a PC as well. GamePass is on PC. I play it on PC sometimes. I have an Xbox, but I play it on PC as well. I think there's so many avenues to go here. Like you have the All Access program now, where you can have basically an Xbox for $25 a month. And it's even cheaper to go that way with the 2 years of Game Pass Ultimate you get in there. You save like $50. Am I correct?
Yeah. It's roughly that, yeah.
Yeah, so I guess there are enough avenues at the moment to go for getting an Xbox. I think there's no excuse. Like if you love gaming in general and are not like a real fanboy going for only your hardware and you enjoy gaming, I think there's enough like there's enough to go in, like, yeah, how do I say this? So there's enough ways to get into the Xbox ecosystem, and that's what they're counting for. That's why they did the Alex program, the xCloud and stuff.
Well, that's the beauty of Series S, isn't it? And its price point and its kind of technical sort of standing, I guess. Because, you know, if you really do want that second console and you don't want the Series X, then you know they've got you covered basically. And I think I've heard Phil say that a few times. You know, we've basically got you covered, because if you're not prepared to pay for it or play it on your mobile through cloud gaming, then we've got the Series S for that. And if you want the top flight version, then we've got the Series X for that. So, Puxley. What's going on in the chat quickly?
Yeah, so there's a few things I'd like to read out. The first one is from a person called Blackcard2020. Thanks for tuning in. And this is to a question of, you know, what exclusives has happened in recent times, and we couldn't think of any. So Blackcard's actually come up with Street Fighter, which has now become a PlayStation exclusive for being a multi-plat previously. Which I think is quite a good example.
That's a third-party owned platform, right? Third-party company, right? I'm talking about someone acquiring a studio that's traditionally been That's like someone going to buy Activision tomorrow, right? And then making Call of Duty exclusive. That's in terms of modern times. I haven't seen that, and that's unprecedented, I think, right now.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine. What else have we got in the chat? So yeah, there's a few comments I'm going to have to go back a tiny bit. So Parksy1972, thanks for tuning in. They say Amazon and Google going to start buying publishers too, I guess. A lot of games and loved franchises are going to be exclusive to certain platforms.
Yeah, we're coming on to that in topic 2, actually, so hang around for that. Yeah, I'm really excited for topic 2, to be honest. But let's
I've got a few more I'd like to go through. So comment from Dragon Wolf. So people are not taking into account Google and Amazon. The big boys are stepping into gaming. If Sony does not adapt, they may become Blockbuster when Netflix arrive. Again coming up to that in a minute. Luke Steele, I'd personally be quite surprised if any of the Bethesda big hitters came up on other platforms, but will depend on the numbers Microsoft run closer to the time, which they will most certainly do. And fun speculation as well. So xCloud will only improve, and Orion may have been part of the acquisition to make this happen faster. Streaming set-top devices and integrated TVs will be a factor in 2 years.
And the other thing that we're kind of skipping over slightly is it's not just obviously the games, it's the id Tech engine as well that comes with that particular deal. That it's a great engine, and I think Microsoft love to have that and under their belt, as it were. Pux, you know, the Microsoft and Xbox have hinted there's more to come. What do you think's left? I mean, is there another big studio acquisition coming, or is this obviously smaller stuff?
God, I don't think I could possibly tell you at this point in time. I mean, since the Monday announcement of this acquisition, I mean, that took the whole gaming world by surprise. Pleasantly so, I'd say, for the most part. I mean, we've still got about 2 months to go, or just over a month, I should say, really, until the console launch. So I guess if we was to see anything, I would anticipate by maybe mid-October is when we'd hear that, late October at the latest. But if I'm honest, I really couldn't tell you what I could expect to see. It's kind of throwing me out the wind in that regard.
It is, and you know, Asobo would make an obvious choice, or Bloober, you know, people like that perhaps. But VJ, let's come to you next, if that's okay. Now, you know, Microsoft buying Bethesda is a huge upfront cost, and it comes with an element of risk as well, because you know, they've laid down some cash and they now need to work that cash back, don't they? I know they're a cash-rich company, but they need to make a profit on this, and they've just outlaid $7.5 billion, and that goes without all of the other acquisitions. So I would now think that they are in deficit and need to make that up via Game Pass. Do you think a price hike is inevitable, or do you think this is just about getting more and more people on the platform?
It's a really, really deep question, actually. I think that the pricing will increase, but it's really difficult to tell you when. I think that they need to hit that golden number in terms of subscribers before they do anything. I think right now,
But hasn't that number? But with this $7.5 billion acquisition, haven't they just pushed that number out even further?
Well, to be quite frank with you, that 15 million numbers of subscribers been touted around for about 3 months, and only yesterday they've announced that it's still 15 million.
Yeah, I agree.
So my concern is that when is that number going up, right? And I don't know if this dovetails, but I had something separate on this, so I don't really want to sort of break into the topic in that way. So I can give you sort of facts, numbers, and all that sort of stuff, but it kind of dovetails into some of the other questions that you've got lined up. But to answer your question simply is that number at 15 million is not enough. It needs to be higher. And if that, depending on where that number is at a specific given point in time, depending on how confident they feel, depending on where they sit compared to their competitors, will determine if a price hike is required, necessary, or strategically worth implementing without alienating their customer base. So there's so many factors involved in that at the moment. And it also depends on what Nintendo and Sony do, right? In terms of their sort of converging point in terms of how they address this situation and what price point they come at. We just saw recently, was it Luna? Was it $5.99? Yeah. And on merits, it's not only is it $4 or $5 cheaper than Google Stadia, but it seems to be offering a better service. Forgive me if I've got my facts wrong, but from the face of it, from what I read on The Verge, it seems like a much better proposition at half the price.
Yes, we're going to touch on Luna on the next topic. Sorry, no, that's fine. It's not a problem. It's quite nice because, like I say, some of these topics kind of converge, and it's been one of those sort of news weeks where, you know, everyone's mind is racing left, right, and centre. And and of course, Luna lobbed in a grenade as well, or Amazon lobbed in a grenade. Flemish, I'm coming to you next then. So, you know, to go back to kind of my question to VJ, you know, Microsoft have spent a lot of cash, a big, you know, barrel load of cash, and they've just dumped it at Bethesda's door, and they're promising more. But like I say, you know, the more money they spend on these acquisitions, the bigger the number they need to reach on Game Pass to even probably break even, let alone start making money back. Do you think more large studio acquisitions are in the pipeline, or are they going to have to ease off the gas slightly before they can actually start making up some of their cash?
First of all, I think they have cash enough to basically do what they want. I mean,
they do, but they're a business and they do need to make a profit on this particular venture, don't they?
Yeah, but they already said they're not in to make a profit immediately. They see it in the long run, like in 5 or 10 years. Basically, they know it's going to be profitable later on. They see what the projection is with their numbers, like how many people are engaging with the platform and with the services they have. Basically, also, you have to account this. Like 4 months ago, when the live showcase from Xbox was there, they were at 10 million, like in April or around that mark. And then 4 months later, at this time, they're 15 million. So I don't know how fast it's growing, but Game Pass is really taking off in a big way. And then we didn't even factor in Japan, which is also coming in the future, especially with xCloud coming there next year in 2021. And I think for these studios and what they're doing with the acquisitions in general, I think they're not done yet. They told everyone they're not done yet. I think they also want to maybe give a little bit of a scare towards Sony for like what they always did is like they locked the marketing deals with the games and stuff behind their platform. So basically like multiple studios, like those 2 games from Bethesda itself, from the ZeniMax studios, like Deathloop and the Ghostwire Tokyo. Those games are exclusive for a year, and they're basically doing that a lot of times. Also, it seems with like with Spider-Man, you have just a character inside the game and stuff. That's I think Microsoft is like done with a lot of stuff that Sony is taking the marketing over as a marketing leader, right? That they're doing, and that they're just like, we want to take the marketing leading back into gaming. And they also see, I think they already know what Amazon was doing with Luna that they have known before, and I think that's why they also acquired ZeniMax in the first place, to actually take it away from them. Because if it's going the same way like Stadia, they're locking games behind their platform. Epic Games is locking games behind their platform as well, on PC. So there's a lot of different companies doing this, and I think Microsoft is just looking at different avenues to like how can we compete in that regard.
And it's an interesting point that you bring up Japan, actually, and I'll come to you next, Archimedes, if that's okay. So, Satchi's obviously mentioned that he's behind the Xbox program, and spending cash doesn't seem to be a problem for Microsoft. But as we've alluded to, they are going to have to start turning this round. They're not a charity; they are going to have to start earning cash. How important do you think Japan is to the Microsoft and the Xbox platform going forward, with regard Game Pass, to start recouping some of their costs? Do you think Microsoft are relying on Japan coming on board, or do you think it's a risk that they're prepared to take, and if it doesn't pay off, then they'll just have to recoup it somewhere else?
It's also a very good question. Before I answer that, I want to say something about Microsoft making the money back. They will do that really, really fast. And that it doesn't mean that they necessarily increase the price for Game Pass subscription, but Microsoft didn't become one of the most valuable companies in the world if they didn't know how to run a business. And that's what it is. It is a business, a multi-billion-dollar business.
That's why. That's why I ask the question, though, because Satya, he's signed the check. He's fine. He's signed the 7.5 billion, but he is going to want something to show for that at the end. That wasn't just a blank check that Phil can throw away. He's relying on Phil to actually turn a profit at some point. And I appreciate that might be a little bit further in the future than most businesses would need a return on it. But he's still going to want a return, isn't he?
Oh, he definitely is. And I don't think that he is expecting it so far out, like 5 or 10 years. He's expecting to make a return and see growth in numbers very, very soon. This is basically how every business works. Investors only invest into a business where they see growth in. Yeah, they wanna always scale their product. Their money needs to make a return, and that needs to happen relatively soon. So I don't think Microsoft will necessarily increase the Game Pass subscription price per se, but they will try to find other ways to make that money back. And if the Xbox division does not bring, as a whole, the Xbox division brings the right numbers, they will adjust their strategy, and that will happen soon.
Phil did mention in the Tokyo Game Show sort of blurb that he did that Japan is the fastest growing region that they have in the world globally for Xbox at the moment, which I thought was quite interesting.
Yeah, it's funny to see because, and now I want to come to your original question. Is Japan relevant for them? I don't think if you consider console sales, it's not easy for them to get into that market. They have tried before, and the Japanese market is a special market. They have a special culture and everything, but they are also the biggest ones that in mobile gaming. They basically, Japan and South Korea have today worldwide the best mobile infrastructure when it comes to mobile internet and so on. And
so Game Pass kind of makes sense then in Japan to a certain degree.
That is where they did try to land. They want to sell Game Pass there. They don't want to sell the consoles. They want to get in with Game Pass there, because this is really a difference in between the markets that we are used to here in Europe and also in the US. Then I've spent quite a lot of time not in Japan but in South Korea, and it is really a different culture when it comes to electronic devices there. And the mobile phone, the smartphone plays a very different role in these cultures and in these societies. they are. I always say they are probably 5 or 10 years ahead of what we are here in Germany. And this is where Microsoft is aiming. What Microsoft is aiming for. They are not trying to get into the console business there. They won't sell the consoles. This is just not going to happen. But if they can offer those gamers a great value on their phone, that's the business strategy for them. And so I think this is really the important thing. And they have a potential for growth there. Yeah. I don't know if the console market itself can grow any further. It will eventually, but it is a slowly growing market here in Europe, in the US, wherever. We have these gamers that buy the consoles, and it is a slowly growing market, but not to that extent. But if you can bring really other audiences in there that are used to play on other displays, on other devices, you can bring them in, that's where you can grow as your business. And this is what Microsoft wants. They want to grow the business. So yeah, I think this will play a strategically important role, Japan or the Asian market as a whole. I don't think it will take long for Microsoft to enter the Chinese market as well. They definitely want to get those 1 billion or 1.2 billion potential gamers there. And it will play definitely a role in their strategic orientation, but not for the reasons like that we sometimes think that they want to bring Japanese games in or sell the Xbox consoles there. That's probably not what they are aiming for.
No, okay. No, I completely agree. And I'm going to come to you next, VJ, if that's okay, and then probably Pucks after that. We'll go to some chat after. But VJ, you know your stuff when it comes to Japan. You always bring very fresh perspective when it comes to that particular market. Do you think Microsoft are relying on Japan to make Game Pass work, or is this just yet another experiment they're having in Japan? And if it doesn't work, then it doesn't work.
I don't get fooled by this whole Japan thing, right? I've mentioned to you before that we have no idea how many units were launched in Japan of the Xbox Series X or S. So getting excited about selling out in Japan is pretty dumb, in my opinion. So, and I've known Microsoft to bring their methodologies of how they work and how they want to work, and they brought that to several Japanese studios and companies and ventures, and they've all collapsed at one point or another. Okay. So I think it's a big PR move. I think I'm absolutely 100% in agreement with Archimedes that besides China, because getting software approved over there is incredibly difficult, and Sony.
Yes, it is. Definitely.
So I discount that territory completely. I think that South Korea, with the initiatives that they've put out in front of them in terms of pre-installing Game Pass on the new Samsung N20 devices and having access to that for a couple of months for free, always also tying up with SK Telecom and allowing subscribers to access Game Pass for a couple of months free of charge. And then it's going to come down to how good is that app in explaining to you the games you can access for the monthly fee, and on top of the monthly fee, saying to you, explaining to you that, hey, just for another $10, if you really want to, if they can actually convert those users into becoming permanent subscribers, that's one key element they have to get right, because conversion rate is critical. And if they can't convert, then it's a real problem. And that's why I think it's launched in Korea first. And that's why they've announced it won't be in Japan until sometime next year, because they want to see and work out and iron out all their kinks and errors in South Korea to see, right, what works, what didn't work before they roll it out into Japan. Because those two territories are huge for mobile gaming, right? They're pretty affluent territories, probably the two most affluent territories, probably compared to Singapore. So I think that this is the big examination of how good xCloud is, how well it works, how well do the gaming public react to it, right, and engage with it, and if they can tell them, look, you're a subscriber, and hey, look, for another $10 a month, you can own a system at home to enhance your gaming experience. I think it's a clear win. I'm completely in agreement with Archimedes in the fact that if they go head to head with Nintendo and Sony trying to sell hardware, they're arguably set up to surpass Xbox 360. That's for sure. But they want to go well beyond that. I mean, the $7.5 billion that they spent, they didn't buy it. I mean, it's 20 million units, 20 million new subscribers at $180 a month for 2 years before they get that money back. They don't work like that. They'll just write that out. They'll just depreciate that 7.5 billion over the next 4 or 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years, whatever makes sense in the accounting wizardry that goes on these days. I don't know. But what they bought is the brands, and those brands, making them synonymous with Xbox and elevating that brand in itself is what they're doing. They're not diversified as much as Sony is in terms of film, music, game, TV, right? And that may be something that Microsoft will be looking to do in terms of becoming a 360-degree outfit to monetize all of their brands. That's what it's all about right now. And I think Sony, Disney, and other companies like that, they're already situated, like even Nintendo to a degree. So I don't think it's just about gaming anymore. And there's a lot more to be said about that as well. But as I said, Japan right now, it's a decent market. Xbox is not popular there. They only have 10 people in their head office over there. They don't have a physical distributor, and we don't know how many systems they launch. So for me right now, it's a PR move until we get some solid facts, in front of us to really understand what's going on.
Yeah, that's a fair point. And, Phil, I think I've got this right, but Phil mentioned that they will be bringing Game Pass to Japan in the first half of 2021, which, like we said in the midweek show, it buys them a 6-month window, which is quite a comfortable window for them to operate in.
I think there's two things there, Phil. One is that Samsung have more devices in Japan than Apple, not phones, devices. Secondly, Samsung also provide the 5G 5G network solution to KDDI, and I think that between Samsung that they partnered in South Korea, and I think in Japan as well, they'll partner with Samsung and KDDI to launch sometime next year. I don't know when, but he's given a pretty big window, and I think that's fair because they need to analyze exactly all the results from South Korea.
Pucks, yes, I completely agree, VJ, and it's going to be very interesting to watch from a sideline because obviously being in Europe,
bring in your private jet.
Yeah, that'd be good. But no, Japan's always been kind of mystical for me, not only from a Microsoft and Xbox kind of perspective. I've never quite understood why they didn't quite buy into it, but I appreciate it's a completely different culture and it's one I'm not familiar with. But so it'll be interesting to see from an outside observer, just to see quite what happens over there and how Microsoft handle it. VJ, sorry, can we just go through a few bit of chat first, VJ? But while we've got 38 people watching, we are giving away 3 months worth of Game Pass Ultimate. So hopefully it will be 15 million on one by the time we've given that away on Game Pass Ultimate. We need 300 live chat messages. So it's going to be the 300th person that puts a message down that gets the 3-month Game Pass Ultimate. So
I think we have surpassed that now. So
have we? Oh, so that means we've got a winner.
I can't declare it right now, so I'll have to run it through. But
excellent. Okay, well that's done then. Pucks, so what has been going on in the chat?
Yeah, so there's actually a lot of back and forth in the chat regarding the Japanese market and the South Korean market as what's been discussed.
What's your take on it before we do that?
What in particular, exactly?
Whether you think it's critical for Microsoft to sort of break into Japan, or if it's just kind of still an experiment for them. Is it critical for their bottom line on Xbox and to turn Game Pass into profit, or do you think Japan, like I say, they're just trying it and seeing what happens?
Well, from what VJ was saying, I agree with what VJ was saying in terms of Microsoft have tried to jump into the Japanese market for a long time now. It hasn't really been successful. People have bought into Xbox, but nowhere near it into the same numbers as PlayStation and Nintendo. But then equally, I also understand and agree what Archimedes is saying is that the South Korean and Japanese markets are very much heavily into their mobile gaming, and we're not just talking standard mobile apps. We're talking Asia exclusive, like big MMOs and RPGs which are played on the phone. I think I've mentioned on a previous podcast before that maybe my fiance is from Malaysia. She's Chinese Malaysian, and her brother I've spoken to a number of times, and I've seen it firsthand as well as speaking to him that how big the Asian market is in terms of mobile gaming. If anything, I know we've heard news recently that I believe this is correct, that Microsoft have sold out their pre-order allocation in Japan, but equally, as VJ was saying, there's no official numbers as to what or how many units that is. So that could be 500,000 for all we know. It could be 2 million plus. But equally, with I see a lot of potential in the Asian markets with regards to Game Pass, and I don't think this could come soon enough in terms of Game Pass in Japan, because I believe I can see in time that there may be a huge number of Japanese developers which may begin to see the benefits of Game Pass, and if anything, it might also help them reach out to the Western audiences as well, which may have been difficult from a publishing point of view in the past. Whereas if you've got this global platform of where someone can just press a play button and they can stream it on the go, I think that's great. And as Archimedes was saying, I think both of these countries have very top-end internet infrastructures. So I don't think there's going to be any real issues in terms of the ability to stream. It's just, will people buy into it or not?
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, I don't understand the Asian market enough to say that does the current library of Game Pass games, mainly being Western-based titles, do they appeal to the Asian market? I don't know that answer. But I think in time, if Microsoft embraces these Japanese developers and gets their games onto the platform, I think not only will that entice the Japanese market to consider trying out Game Pass and seeing what it's all about, and then at the same time seeing what the Western games are and maybe getting into that side of things. But equally, it works on the Western side as well. I mean, I know the number's not completely massive in terms of compared to main kind of Western releases, but I know there is a big market for people who love Asian exclusive games, like Japanese exclusives or whatever. And I think it's going to be good for everyone if Japanese gamers and developers do get onto Game Pass.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, that's a valid point. Yeah, no, that's a very valid point, actually. And like you say, it just diversifies the whole sort of ecosystem, doesn't it?
Yeah. Can I also jump into some comments as well while we're at it? Because I say there's been a lot of to and fro between what people think about this. So a comment here from Fun Speculation. So Xbox has taken steps into the Japan market a few times, and each time so far they have abandoned it as it wasn't successful. This time they may take a stronger approach and really go for it. Which is what I kind of think they're doing.
Say something there, Puxley.
Yeah, go ahead.
See, look, the original Xbox didn't do that well, right? And we all know that the Xbox One only sold 125,000, right? And just to give you an example where Xbox were at, right, and how far they've let it fall, which is disappointing, is that the Xbox 360 sold 1.5 million units over there. And it just shows you, is like, I don't know, is that a factor of 10 that they let it slide. And so it's not as if Xbox or American companies are not welcome or not well presented. You only have to look at Apple, right, and Samsung, both foreign territories dominating the device and TV market over there. So it's absolutely possible. It's just a case of how you approach those territories, because they have rules. I can't say rules. They have etiquette. They have historical etiquette. They have a way of working and the way of presenting, and you have to respect that. And I just think Microsoft, to a degree, I don't know who was in charge during the Xbox 360 series. Someone maybe far more well versed in the history of Microsoft can explain that to us. But there was obviously been a shift in management. There's been obviously a shift in what happened during the Xbox One. I don't know, in the years that it's been available, but obviously something has happened. But I just think, again, like in the US, if there's one area that Microsoft need to improve on, is definitely in terms of personnel, and especially people that understand different cultures. Because right now, you know that most of South Korea, Asia, is pretty much being handled by US. That's how, and in 22 years, they haven't been able to find a management team to understand Asia and cultivate that and get people on this side. It's pretty concerning, right?
Yeah, no, that's a fair point. And like you say, you know, that they need to get their marketing spot on, and they need people from the culture to assist them with that. I don't think they can do it remotely.
You just made me think of something as well, actually. As we said, I mean, Microsoft had a really hard time with the console sales as of late, and will the Xbox Series system succeed? We don't know. But do you reckon then? I mean, we've just talked about how the Asian markets are big on their mobile gaming, and as Archimedes was saying, that the having a mobile phone in Asian cultures has a completely different impact as to how people use it in their everyday lives, is gaming and otherwise. So do we reckon that, or is it possible instead that rather than relying on console sales, they would rely on Asian people or Asian markets to just jump on Game Pass? Do you just do that instead and just completely ignore, or not ignore, but do you just kind of underrail the console sales and actually just push your Game Pass, because then people can play on their phones, or as Archimedes again said, or any other display that you have laying around effectively?
I think devices is the ultimate, right? If you can get your device under everybody's TV screen, is the ultimate. I think that going head on with devices wasn't going to work. So that's why I think that Game Pass, and Archimedes has already said it, it's almost like a back door, right? In saying, hang along, you know what, we can't beat you head to head on hardware, but we're going to take a step back, target all the devices, make sure that every time someone switches on their phone, they see our Game Pass app, whether they subscribe or not. And once they subscribe, there's an easy way to get a box under your system. And if they can get all those systems in place, it's a way to regrow the brand from the ground up yet again, right? But this time targeting a much wider audience with casting a way bigger net. And that's why they've set up all these Azure servers, xCloud, Game Pass, or Access. And you know, look, I don't know about you guys, but I really love Yakuza, and Yakuza Like a Dragon coming to Series X, you know, on day and day on Game Pass is a big pull for me. Now, I'm not saying that that's for everybody. I think EA Play is actually a bigger one because soccer's so big over in Asia, but how well that plays on a mobile device, I don't know. So I think that there's tons of mobile games that we don't know of that generate billions of yen, if not, well, tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars for Sega, for Sony, that we don't even know about because they're so obscure that those guys in Asia are playing. So I think that what's really important is how Game Pass actually works as an app in terms of curating IP that pops up specifically for that region would be pretty critical.
Yes, completely agree. Like I say, as an observer of this from overseas, I'm quite excited to see how it goes. And I really want Microsoft to do well over there because, as Puxley said, you know, the diversity that they can bring to the line both ways just makes it a whole richer experience all around. Now, I'm conscious of time. We're just over the hour mark, and we've kind of done, and I've not even asked all the questions on topic one. So I really appreciate the chat. Who just asked that question? Bear with me. Sorry. It was Parksy. What's Microsoft presence like in India? Do we know just very quickly? Is it big in India?
It's not huge. In India, what you have to understand, majority of the gamers over there are on PC, and piracy is still really rife. And you have to understand that 70 to 80% of the country is still pretty agricultural, regardless of how many people live over there. So it's going to take time, most definitely. But it's definitely a market that is rapidly growing. But as I said, it's still 70 to 80%. I think even up to 90% is agriculture in terms of its population's up to.
Okay. Well, in terms of obviously headcount, obviously India and China are huge, but like you say, you know, they have to have the devices and the will and the money to be able to play these things that obviously Microsoft are willing to offer or are able to offer. So I'm just going to round off topic one then. So like I say, I've still got questions left that we haven't even asked. And one question, this is rhetorical, I don't need answers, was will Microsoft leave the studios alone to do their own thing, or will they try and micromanage all of the studios? Now, I'm going to just leave that rhetorically. Perhaps the chat can answer that question. I would love to have asked the panel that, but I think we need to move on for the sake of time, because topic two is the one that I'm really excited about. But before we do, just need to make a big shout to the chat. Thank you, everyone in the chat. We went up to 39 viewers early, which for us, we're tiny, is quite a big deal. I'd like to have broken the 40, but we haven't quite done that this evening as far as I've seen. But we've got some great chat going on. Got some new people in the chat. Thank you and welcome. We have Guardians in the chat. We have Mr. Tushi, Fugly, and Fun Speculation. They are our guardians of the chat. They are our moderators, and they keep the place nice and safe. We're very lucky. We do harness the sort of a very nice community, and we're all kind of respectful of each other, and we're all here for the same thing. We're not here for lobbing stones and grenades at the other sort of Sony and Nintendo. It's not about that, although we will ask very, real questions about them. Or we've just popped up to 39 again. So thank you everyone for being in the chat, and let's start topic two. And I'm coming to you first, Archimedes, if you don't mind. Now I do need to sort of state that this isn't a fanboy statement at all. It's a genuine question that I'm asking of Sony. And the only reason I'm asking it is because of what happened Monday with Bethesda. And I take your point, VJ, we can't perhaps blow it out of proportion, particularly with Sony, but perhaps more importantly with Luna, when Amazon came out with Luna on Thursday, I believe it was. So the question is Sony's current business model relevant anymore? I know that sounds inflammatory, but as we stand at this moment in time, Microsoft I personally thought them buying Bethesda was actually a statement of intent. It wasn't so much about that, but it shows us how serious they are about this and where they take, where they see things. And I agree with something VJ said earlier. They're not looking, I don't think they're looking at Sony, to be honest. I think they're looking way over the heads of Sony and beyond. With regards trying to capture the 3 billion gamers that you mentioned, Archimedes, out in the world. And with Luna and Google Stadia doing the same thing, do you think Sony's current business model, as it stands off right now, is current and will be relevant in the coming years?
That's a fantastic question, and well, I don't want to over promote my own channel, but I did this week a video basically saying exactly that they will have to adjust eventually. I can't blame Sony at the moment for trying to make money the way how they used to for the last, how long are they now in the console business? 20 plus years. It has worked for them very well. However, the world is changing. You mentioned Luna is the latest partner in the gaming industry now. And the way I see it is just with all what Microsoft is doing right now, they are changing the industry. The way how we think about gaming and the value of gaming. Let me give you an example. If I have to buy a PlayStation game now for 70 euros, 80 euros in the next generation, this bothers me now. It didn't used to, because I always paid full price for a game when I wanted to play it.
Yeah.
Now it starts to bother me. It bothers me that I have to buy a second controller next generation. On the Xbox, I'm not buying a new controller. I just use my old Xbox One controllers.
Well, that's a very valid point, because I was coming at this from a software kind of business model point of view, but you're absolutely right. The hardware side of it as well.
Hardware side as well.
Yeah. I agree.
It bothers me that I have to buy that. Same goes for the headset. And then of course compatibility. I went fully digital the whole generation. I bought my last disc on the Xbox 360. It would really annoy me if I can't play all my games, and it annoys me on the PlayStation that I still have to keep my PlayStation 3 to play my games. These are all the things that Microsoft is currently changing in the gaming industry, and I really see it. I've always been a multi-console era for I can't tell you how long. I've always owned all the consoles, even when Sega was in the industry. I also had those systems. But now it really starts to annoy me, because it's so convenient what Microsoft does to me that it starts to bother me. I know that it is a little bit a double standard, because I'm always saying Sony, and I always have to point out, Nintendo, because their practices are basically the same, if not worse. However, they are a little bit in a different market, like I always say, than Microsoft and Sony are. And then xCloud is still, I think, the biggest game changer. And like you said, Microsoft is not just looking at Sony. They see 100 million potential customers at Sony, but they see that, like I said, this number 3 billion gamers out there play games on any device, PC, consoles, phones, whatever. But they are there, and they just try to see how can we get into the other markets, into the market of the gamer that is not buying the console and the $80 or euro game. So this is really the biggest game changer for me, and I really see that in the community as well. Everybody thinks of xCloud as playing on their phone, but like I said earlier, it has so much potential. You can play it on every screen, and if they target that, and we see that Amazon is now with Luna targeting exactly that. They want to get onto the TVs. They include it in Fire TV. With your Fire TV stick, you can play the Luna now on the big screen, no problem. for a very cheap price of, I don't know how much it is in the UK. Yeah, but here for a few euros, €6 here per month, you can play that, and almost everyone has an Amazon account. Yeah, you don't even have to create one. So they are a real. They deliver also a real value here for just a few bucks. You can now play hundreds of games via Amazon. Yeah, they don't have the exclusives. But this is really a price point where so many casual gamers say, well, for $6 or whatever, I can give this a try. And the regular gamer market, they don't really care that much about exclusives like we do. The hardcore gamers, yeah, we always discuss the first party content and who has the better and more and whatsoever. But I think that the mass market, those 3 billion gamers out there, that only a very, very small percentage of those are considered the hardcore gamers that really care about the first party games. The others just want to play games. Yeah, no, they don't care about first party games. And so Amazon is now really, Luna is really something you have to take serious, because everyone has the Amazon app on their smart TV right now. And if they start to simply enable game streaming there for an extra few bucks a month, and you can play a game like FIFA or Assassin's Creed or whatever, that's really a big deal. And this is how you expand your market outside of this core gamer market. And I want to finish. Take a point from Vijay. The question for them will be, how big is the attachment rate? How many of those of those gamers that try the subscription services and streaming services and whatever, how many of those can you make a permanent member? I think this is something that is similar to the fitness business. Yeah, you have all those studios where you can go practice, and everybody is signed in in some studio, but they really depend on people just having that being a member of your fitness parlor and not going there.
Why are you mentioning fitness while I have a donut in my mouth?
Caught you off guard there.
Yeah, because of my doctor recommended me to go to the fitness after my foot heals, to recover better. That's why it's in my mind, probably. No, but seriously, I think this is a similar thing. Yeah, you have to. They want to bring in the subscribers that just have it because, well, those few bucks a month, they don't hurt me, and you have it there. Yeah, this is, and Amazon is at a price point right now where people will be too lazy to cancel the subscription. And this is how you enter a market. It's done way better than Stadia did it. And I think Microsoft is really looking at those players more, because they see a potential of growth there. It will be significantly more difficult, like I said earlier, for Microsoft to grow just in the regular console space. And to finish it up, the Sony business model really relies on the same ways like it's always been. And I don't know how big that traditional console business can grow anymore for them. And that's why we will see definitely an adjustment in their strategy in the next couple of years. I'm sure of that.
Yeah, and to be fair, it was a little bit of a loaded question, because I am asking.
Sorry for the extended answer.
No, it's fine. No, and to be honest, I'm really grateful for your answer, because you gave your answer as a consumer and not necessarily a commentator from above. In fact, you gave it kind of both views, and I'm quite grateful for that, because you kind of highlighted to me actually that, you don't get a good deal with PlayStation. That's how it feels, and I'm sure they would argue otherwise. Flemish, let's come to you next then. So again, as a consumer, do you think PlayStation's business model is value for money, or do you think paying 70, 80 euros actually in Europe and paying rebuying all your peripherals and controllers and stuff, is that appealing to you, or are Sony stuck in a particular model that they're struggling to get out of at the moment?
Yeah, first of all, I think PlayStation really doesn't have the infrastructure at the moment to go the way of like Game Pass or xCloud or stuff like that. Like it's not possible for them, and I think the only
Pardon
way
me
out
to interrupt here, but they have exactly for that reason signed that deal with Microsoft to use the Azure servers.
Agree.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. I'll change my point a little bit.
Well,
then.
no, you don't have to, Flemish, because I would also counter that, saying they haven't done anything with it yet. And that's not to say they won't. I do acknowledge that. But, they still haven't done anything with that yet, as far as we're aware, have they?
Yeah,
No.
they only got like a large amount of games. They got their PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3 titles in there for like 700 different games, which is still amazing for the price that they offer because they lowered it some time ago because it was more expensive. But overall, I think the strategy is so mixed at the moment. Like basically, what they're just hurting themselves a lot, because of making the games more expensive, and seeing that the competition is actually making everything cheaper overall. Because Game Pass is like so cheap if you look at it, how much value you get per year, for how many games you get for free, basically for the $180 you spend if you go for the ultimate. And then you got Luna now basically doing the same thing. Like even the new Assassin's Creed and Legion from Watch Dogs is in Luna as well. So I mean, those values are so amazing for what they give you, and I think PlayStation is really like they're not gonna have a bad start because it's the brand, the name. But overall, I think when time goes on and they don't change what they are doing, I feel as a consumer, I will not be buying a lot of PlayStation games except the real exclusives that I want. But because I'm a gamer, I still want to experience those exclusives like Ratchet and Clank, like Miles Morales. But they're also making
But
those
it's going to
available.
be, it's unlike Microsoft's offering. That's going to be a very expensive thing for you to do.
Yeah, but only those exclusives, which are not too many, and all the other games are basically or going to Game Pass, or I'm actually thinking of holding off most games because I'm thinking like, are they going to the service as well? Like, I'm actually thinking more about my money, like Boxam, like Archimedes was saying before. Like, I'm actually more cautious what I want to do with my money in the future, with games all going to the services and actually just holding off like, should I buy this, should I wait for a sale, or should I wait till it goes into Game Pass because it will probably go to a service in the near future. And when you look at all those services at the same time, you would subscribe to Stadia if that's viable at the moment. But I really think the value over there is like the worst of them all. But then Luna now, and then Game Pass. Like if you look at those two values at the moment, or those three, you still get a lot more for your value than you go with PlayStation alone.
Yeah, and that's that. I mean, to be honest, yeah, like you say, we'll perhaps come on to Stadia and Luna in a sec. Actually, that might be a kind of a second part of this topic. I'll come to you next, Puxley, and then VJ afterwards to close around this particular point. But again, you're a PlayStation 4 owner. Were you tempted to buy a PlayStation 5, or is Microsoft's offerings just too good to be true, or too good to ignore, perhaps?
So when we saw the PlayStation reveal in end of June, when we first saw the PS5, I will be honest, I had more goosebumps for the PS5 than I did for the Series X, admittedly.
And was
However,
that the games that you saw or the box itself?
it was more for the box itself, if I'm perfectly honest. I liked the sleek design. I liked the kind of the lighting they have underneath, the color scheme, the general shape. I don't know. It was the hardware design. I mean, I work with hardware for a living, right? So when I see that kind of thing, I got more impressed by that than just looking at a cuboid. But talking about games and services available, and obviously the new information about the costs of these things as well. I mean, as Archimedes and Flemish was saying, I mean, $70, €80, £70, however much it is, for me, that is a lot of money. And I can't help but also look at this from the perspective of families and parents of children as well. I know, as gamers, it's deemed to be an expensive hobby, which is also very much true. But equally, a lot of these, the gaming business doesn't just thrive on the enthusiasts, right? Because that is such a small pool of people when you consider the global amount of people that love to game. There are plenty of parents with young children and whose young children really want to play these new systems. I mean, I've seen comments from friends and relatives on Facebook, for example, that say that, oh, my 7-year-old son has said he wants a PS5 for Christmas. Oh dear, it's gonna cost a bomb. And I'm like, for all we know, I don't know whether or not these people are really into gaming and know what else is on offer. All they hear is that their child is saying they want the PS5, but are these people now also aware that games are going to cost them £70 a pop? Unless their child pays 500, or unless they pay 500 odd quid for a box where their child only plays free-to-play games like Fortnite. I don't know. But on the other side of the coin, I mean, was I looking forward to PlayStation 5? Yes, I am. But looking at the offerings now, when I look at Xbox, I mean, I now pay for Game Pass Ultimate. I originally had the PC one. Since that was going to go up from the beta price from $3.99 to $7.99 in the UK currency, I thought, well, I want to get involved in cloud gaming. So I'd quite happily pay an extra £3 a month to have a go at that. And to be fair, I was even laying in bed last night with my PlayStation 4 controller hooked to my phone, jumping into about 5 or 6 different indie titles, and even did some Gears of War while laying in bed, and it worked perfectly fine for me. So looking at the offerings of knowing that I can pay this one price or one monthly subscription, and I can get all of these games for no extra cost, unless there is a specific game which isn't coming to the service which I really want. That may be something like Call of Duty, that I kind of tend to jump on and off the different Call of Duty installments, if I'm perfectly honest. But it's games like that which obviously won't come to these services, at least not in the immediate future, that I may have to pay out for, as well as everybody else. But I can't help but feel that, especially from the family narrative, it's actually better value overall for these people to pay for a monthly subscription, and then children and families alike can just enjoy this massive library of games, as opposed to needing to pay just short of £100 a pop for a single title.
Yeah, it's an expensive thing. If you're going to go down the PS5 route, it's not going to be cheap, and particularly, like you say, if you're a parent with more than one child that wants these sort of latest technology things, it's not cheap in the slightest. So I'm going to come back to you after VJ, if that's all right, Pux, and we'll go through some ads. VJ, I've got a 2-point question for you, I'm afraid, and I know you're not keen on these, so bear with me. Do you think Sony are sort of at risk of becoming a market follower rather than a market leader? And if so, do you think they are falling behind, so far with the likes of Stadia and Luna buying these particular servers and things like that they're going to struggle to catch up?
See, you're asking the question sort of in a vacuum, really. So you have to really analyze what the other two are doing, right, in order to answer your question. So you can
two being
Nintendo and Microsoft.
Yeah.
So I had actually a 3-part answer, but we probably haven't got time for all 3. So I'm actually going to give you a left field answer, if that's all right.
Yeah.
So so your original question was, and it kind of answers the question that you're asking now, I believe. So correct me if I'm wrong at the end. Is that you asked basically, is Sony's current business model relevant or sustainable, right? So let's look at Nintendo, right? Since it's the most historically established and unchanged business model in operation today, although it's been enhanced via digital store, right, to help significantly boost profits, right, on each and every game and piece of DLC, is it? Yeah, DLC, I think that they sell as well, right, online. Now, and it's probably far more profitable in terms of what Nintendo has achieved in the first 3.5 years of its launch compared to what I think Sony PlayStation and Microsoft's Xbox One achieved in the same time frame. They sell hardware at a profit, which is at $299 price point. The majority of the development teams are housed in a large campus based in Kyoto, Japan. The development teams are all focused on a single hardware format. This helps to retain Nintendo's signature qualities. They continually recreate and redefine visuals and gameplay mechanics. They promote and market all of their existing brands and establish them into every household via aggressive licensing tactics, very similar to sort of what Disney does. You've also got And all of this on a unique but definitely a weaker hardware format, right, than its competitors. And it's not, they've never been focused on a bleeding edge, right, in terms of tech.
I agree, VJ, but I'm playing an unfair game here, and I do hold my hand up to it because obviously we're talking about the current sort of situation and business strategies. But with Microsoft buying Bethesda, to me personally, not only was I ultra excited and floored by the news, for me it was a statement of intent of where they see Game Pass going and how serious they are and how much money they're prepared to spend. So seeing Microsoft do that, and kind of Luna and kind of Google Stadia, Nintendo and Sony, they've not said that they're doing that. Are they at risk of falling behind?
I'm going to answer your question, but I wanted to give you a little bit of background before I go in and just say yes or no, because there's no point in giving you an answer if there's no basis to it. So overall, Nintendo, in my opinion, are unique and innovative, right? But they never lose sight of what their basic fundamentals are, right? And that's to grow and blossom organically, all while creating new experiences and IPs, right? Since that's fundamentally intrinsic to their existence. But the band of frequency that their audience exists in is still pretty narrow. And their foray into mobile gaming and so on and so forth, taking their IPs across, has not really developed as many thought it might, right? So much for professional analysis. It's being, I think, that mobile gaming device and everything from their point of view, because this dovetails into relation in terms of how xCloud is working, is been parked, and that's no doubt, in my opinion, in terms of investment and resource in versus profit out. Finally, take into account Nintendo have 200 million active user accounts, right? 100 million more than the Xbox Live service. They've got 26 million paying subscribers, right? Versus Xbox's 15 million that they've generated over the last 3 years.
But that's only 200 million of 3 billion.
Yes, but the thing is, I'm going to come to the point, right? So what you've got to look at, and Nintendo have achieved that in less than half the time it's taken Microsoft, right? Given all of the content that they've got. Now, Nintendo's promised to go further ahead with that, right? In developing more IP and so on and so forth, and establishing that further. And you know why, right? Because they want to increase the amount of subscribers and the monthly fees, right? Now, my question to you then becomes, so I've got 3 or 4 questions for you. Is Nintendo's business model relevant anymore, since it's furthest removed from that of Sony's is from Microsoft, right? And what's the holdup or issue for Microsoft converting those 100 million live subscribers to Game Pass, let alone the 3 billion? Why is it that the 15 million subscribers were hit 2 to 3 months ago? Because those were the news floating around there and then, and it's still at 15 million now, according to their tweet. And then obviously, did the PC gamers, when they saw the price hike from $1 to $5 and then to $10, did people have second thoughts? xCloud launched. 22 countries, where's the spike? And only 5 million, let's just assume out of the 15 million, 5 million of those are PC gamers, right? That's 0.7% of 700 million people that play games on PC. And the thing is, before we look at the 3 billion, we need to look at the numbers that are closer to home and how they convert them over to Game Pass before we run about 3 billion mobile device users.
That's a fair point.
Sorry about that, Phil. I might have gone the wrong way.
No. Absolute fair point, to be honest. And I think Microsoft are actually quite conservative with the numbers, to be honest, because that 15 million has been bandied around a long time.
Yeah, it was. Sorry, Phil. It was just that it was officially tweeted on their account.
I don't know why they're holding back, but because it like you say, that 15 million's been around for a long time, and I would suspect it's probably a lot more than 15. Perhaps they're just doing it in 5 million sort of chunks. I don't really know if that's the case or why they would do that, but no, I take your point, and perhaps they do need to start at home. Like I say, it was a little bit of a loaded question because I'm comparing sort of the current business model. I think I don't know, 3 to 5 years we're going to start seeing more and more reliable game streaming services, perhaps, as people jump onto this. But before we go into that particular thing, Pux, what's the chat been doing? Because I know there's been a few to and fro on there as well.
Yes, there has been. I'll read out some of the slightly older ones first. I'm trying to think where to start. Yeah, so a comment here from Pong Sol. So, if Sony doesn't adapt, they will put themselves into Nintendo status, where they have a passionate following for their exclusives, which is not a bad thing, but they will miss the larger piece of pie.
Well, I guess that's the essence of the question, and perhaps we'll try and come on to that on the next bit when we talk about Stadia and Luna, actually. But yeah.
Yeah, so there's also been some interesting exchanges between SX2 and Dragon Wolf. I quite enjoy seeing this. Thank you, guys. So originally, I haven't got every part of the comments here. So I've got originally started from SX2 saying to Dragon Wolf that they need to make sure they're putting out good content. Crackdown 3 and Recore won't be enough. They need more Flight Simulator and Wasteland.
Yeah, I agree. But with the studios they've now acquired, that is it a guarantee? It's not a guarantee, but it's much more likely.
Yeah, that's true. Then there was some other exchanges, and I found another comment here. So again, this was SX2 to Dragon Wolf, which I saw is the ending part in particular. I thought was important here. So they say, I think the issue is they weren't top quality. People will often refer to them as fodder or filler. They need high quality games that rival The Last of Us and God of War. Now, do those kind of games, does Xbox need a big game like that? I mean, to say, I think it was a Flemish Archimedes was saying earlier that, I think it's Flemish, sorry. So, in terms of what would give me a PS5, I mean, God of War or God of War sequel, whatever its kind of subtitle is, I mean, I would 100% in time pay for a PS5 just to play that game, alongside things like Ratchet and Clank. So, do we agree here that what does Xbox have something which could rival God of War or The Last of Us?
Oh, that's a good question. Who are you asking that to?
That's an open question to whoever would like to answer.
Sorry, Huxley, what was the question? I beg your pardon.
So, does Xbox have a game as big and as popular as God of War or The Last of Us that could rival those titles on the Xbox?
Let's go to Flemish first. Let's just do a quick roundhouse. Yeah, have Microsoft got anything on their books with the 23 studios that are actually going to rival the PlayStation first-party big hitters?
I think you can see that per person in the first place. I mean, everyone likes different games. I mean, I heard someone that actually didn't like all of the Bethesda games. So that's also something that I want to bring into here. Like, it depends on the gamer itself. Like, I love God of War and stuff like that. I'm going to be very interested into Avowed for sure. That's what the main game that I really see getting an interest. Also, the Medium. The Medium is something I think a lot of people will actually, they don't know if they're gonna like it, but if they try, I think it's gonna be a sleeper hit to be sure. That's what I think. So,
Archimedes, do you think Microsoft have got some big hitters coming that can rival God of War?
Yeah, difficult question. Because with God of War, I think Sony themselves got surprised. I mean, the God of War series always has been fantastic, and they knew that they have a hit, but that it will be so well received. I think that was also a surprise for them. Yeah, Well, but Microsoft also has some potential candidates there. Avowed is definitely one. I mean, look at the success of Skyrim, and if they can get to that quality, and I think Obsidian has the potential to do so. That is definitely one. Hellblade 2. If you consider what Ninja Theory did with 20-something people that worked on the first game, and now with more or less unlimited resources and a significantly increased team, this has definitely the potential to be in that league. I still think Halo is a franchise that is not to be underestimated. It has such a huge fan base, and from everything what we have seen gameplay wise, it looks fantastic. And if they nail the story, this is still a franchise that has the potential to do so. And then, of course, with Bethesda, we have a couple of IPs there that have those quadruple A potential. Yeah. So definitely, Microsoft can have those. Yeah, like I said, quadruple A bangers.
It's going to be a very interesting generation, this one. I mean, Microsoft.
Yes.
I wrote down in my notes, and perhaps I shouldn't have done, but I wrote down, and it was kind of a rhetorical question, but have Sony awoken a sleeping giant in Microsoft? And that's kind of a reference to World War II, if you think about it, to be honest. It seems like Sony have had a bloodied nose, shall we say, come 2013, and they have come out swinging and all kinds of crazy. And I don't know where Sony feel they stand at the moment. I'm going to come to you next, VJ, if that's all right, and talk about Jim Ryan quickly. But I'm just going to quickly pop this up on the screen because I've seen this quite a few times. Xbox has too many games, which is a bit of an odd one. VJ, Jim Ryan, is he the guy to lead Sony forward in the charge? Now, given that Stadia and Luna exist in the world, and obviously Game Pass and cloud gaming, is Jim Ryan the guy to move Sony into the next foray of gaming, or is he probably one of the people that's sort of holding the generation back currently, do you think?
I just want to say a quick word, a cynical word on the previous topic before I answer your question, if that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, look, ZeniMax was a fantastic move. Okay, and they've got fantastic IP that can easily rival sales of God of War, right? Gaming palettes and the types of games you like is completely subjective. God of War sold 10 or 12. Okay, Fallout's done 15 million. And I think across all 2 generations, Skyrim did 30 million, right? So that puts it to bed in terms of numbers. But in terms of the games, whether you like narrative, whether you like design, whether you like what type of game you like is completely subjective.
Well, I think the essence to the question was whether it's a console seller.
I think so. Well, if 15 or 45 million people bought those different games, and even if you say it's just 30 million, of course, I mean, they didn't buy ZeniMax for the fun of it, right? But the bigger thing here, ZeniMax was a fantastic move, but it's in the honeymoon period right now. Changes will occur in a year, right? As Microsoft get their foot in the door, as they inevitably do, right? And people will leave, and some people will lose their jobs. My thing is, this dovetails into your actual next question in terms of Jim Ryan. Phil Spencer and Satya are not Walt Disney, right? He was incredibly aggressive back in the 50s and 60s, right, before he passed away. And he knew exactly how to integrate and maximize talent and acquired IP. And Microsoft today still don't. And I think that is the only question mark for me over that company. And then to asking about Sony, what you got to understand, that the Japanese, for me, from my experience, have a very certain type of stamina, right, when it comes to business. And at the time of the PS4 launch, if you remember, and I think you just hit on a very good point, Phil, yourself, when you said Sony came out swinging in 2013, Sony was seemingly heading right to sort of like the pile-high scrap heap of stagnated Japanese electronics companies back then. A lot of businesses was going out of business. But the PS3, even though the corporation itself was in a downward trend for several years and entering bankruptcy and having to sell both of their corporate headquarters, which were like 50 years old, and ending up having to do a sale and lease back on both of those in order to raise money to survive, they still doubled down on first-party games. And that laid the creative for PS3, and that laid the foundation for the PS4 and what the studios and company would achieve going forward, which we obviously know about right now. But also back at that time, Sony, I don't remember, there was a big hoo-ha that they had an annual general meeting, right? And shareholders were so disappointed they were actually heckling the management live, right? But because why is this happening? Why doesn't it happen to Microsoft? It's because Sony, historically, everybody expects them to consistently deliver, how can I put it, zeitgeist-defining devices and games, right? That's just what they're known for, right? But putting all that aside, I think Sony's approach is really different this time around. The real business that everybody is in right now, including Sony, Microsoft, Disney, Netflix, Amazon, the list goes on, and Microsoft, and even Nintendo, is acquiring brands and content, especially if they cannot create them. And even if you look at a lesser known company, someone like the Embrace Group, who own THQ, Saber Interactive, 4A Games, Koch Media, Deep Silver, and even retail outlets in the form of Game, right, Europe, they've got 4,500 employees, right, and they're still searching for opportunities. And if you compare them in relation to Nintendo, who has 6,000, Xbox with Bethesda now have 5,300 employees, PlayStation is only at 2,900 employees, right? They're only 100 behind like a week ago. And now they're an astronomical number behind Microsoft. Everyone is trying to secure brands and content so they can offer a 360-degree outlet in terms of entertainment across all available physical and digital formats and or licensing. It's all about the ability now to harness and maximize those IPs and brands for a 360-degree sales opportunity. And for me right now, Sony as a group are transitioning and expanding synergistically with the recent acquisitions and partnerships between music, film, games, and TV. I think Sony's divisions historically worked in silos, but that's also changing in terms of that they want to become less reliant, I believe, on PlayStation and itself, because it's basically been propping up Sony for, I don't know, for as long as I can remember, right? And if you want to really get into the numbers, right, Sony as a corporation spent 2.6 billion in the last 18 months, right, buying acquisitions and stakes in non-related gaming businesses, and they've only spent 480 million, I think, in the Epic and the Insomniac deal, right? And it feels like to me, and this is going back to what Archimedes said in his first question in terms of how many studios has Xbox got and what are they doing and what they're planning, rather than going out spending billions. I think for me, they're poised to expand studios internally, as in terms of the recent information that we've got. Guerrilla Games have moved. Santa Monica have also moved, growing into multiple, well, 2 teams. I won't say multiple teams, and their approach is to fund external partners like Square and Atlas, right? And with the former, they've got a 25-year relationship. So in terms of how you see Jim Ryan, see past him. He's not the power, influence, or guiding hand at Sony. Then really think about it. And should Sony be written off? I find it, in my opinion, very hard to underestimate the Japanese. At a glance today, the odds may seem stacked up against them, but historically, Sony Japan know tactically how to set up and win. I'll leave you with this, right? Sony has more annual revenue, more cash reserves, and less debt than Disney right now. That's what they've achieved in the last 7 years from coming back from the brink of bankruptcy. I guess the question becomes, do you bet against Sony and its ingenuity and creative philosophy? And
that's a good question. And you know, Sony is a multifaceted or multi-industry kind of company. No. And to be honest, I'm coming straight back to you. To be honest, and I'm going to try and wrap up now, guys, if I can. And so I'm going to go to each of you. I'm going to finish on you, Pucks, but I'm coming back to you straight away. Then, Pucks, VJ, sorry. And let's be brief if we can. So to round this off, is cloud gaming just a pipe dream? And is actually Sony's and Nintendo's move actually the right one? Do we, you know, I think cloud gaming is still yet to prove itself, and yet we have Luna, we have Stadia, we have xCloud. I still think they're yet to prove themselves, and they're not mainstream media. So you know, there seems to be this sort of mad rush to go and get IPs and go and get some content on your platform before we even know it's an established platform and that it's going to work. So could this all backfire and actually Sony come through this? Let me ask you one question. Do you think cloud gaming is a pipe dream, and do you think it's actually going to work in the long run?
Look, nothing is a pipe dream. It's just a buzzword right now. And everyone thinks that from that, by going into that, they can make money. But why not let Xbox go ahead, try it out, see if it works? And why not?
Because if they're buying up all of the studios and all of the IPs.
I'm not talking about content acquisition here. I'm talking about a business strategy that requires an incredible amount of investment, which Microsoft are making already. Amazon, Google are sitting back. Sony and Nintendo are also watching, right? So right now, if you look at Sony, where are they at the moment? So I'm not saying you can say that that's a pipe dream, because it may very well work out and everyone will jump on the bandwagon because they've all got properties, right? They've all got IPs, they've all got branding, they all know how to deliver software. But right now, you have to look at Sony's situation. This is why I talked about Nintendo earlier, right? Is their business model completely back to front? But it's not at the moment. But right now, Sony's business model has to be different, because they'd be too foolish to change, since the PlayStation 4 is operating under an existing model that's still calculated to be incredibly lucrative and will be managed to maximize its profitability before it gets put out to pasture. Ideally, once the PlayStation begins to phase down and the PS5 install base and its first party blockbusters come online in the next 12 to 24 months, then I think we're going to see changes to Sony's model. But that also depends, and this is exactly to your point, is where does Xbox stand at that point in time, and what do the metrics look like? Sony won't be forced into anything like a knee-jerk reaction that we're expecting, oh, buy Konami, but do this, do that, and blah, blah, blah. Because just as Nintendo wasn't, after the Wii U catastrophe, when everybody said, stop making hardware devices, go and develop for Xbox, go and develop for Sony, right? Go develop for mobile phones. And we know the history. Sony and Nintendo have solid business plans, regardless of what the competitors do to a degree. If a competitor encroaches on your business and your profits and your customer base, then as a corporation of that magnitude, they are prepared to deploy countermeasures earlier if need be, and that should be in the form always, regardless of how you get the content out there. It should be compelling content first and foremost. So as long as you've got that, you've got a chance.
I agree, and I'm going to come to Archimedes next. I guess my only concern with that is if if cloud gaming is a thing of the future, and Amazon and people like that are buying up, and not so much buying up the IPs and acquisitions, but what they might be doing is actually buying up people's subscriptions. If Amazon's Luna is an extremely viable product, and Microsoft is an extremely viable product, and if Stadia ever turns this sinking ship round, because I'm not sure Stadia is particularly popular. Is it too late for Sony to actually play catch up at that point? I agree they've got some fantastic IPs, and they could certainly utilize and sell those. But from an infrastructure point of view, are they ready? Do they need 2 years to get their infrastructure up and running? And are they 2 years behind the race at that point? Archimedes, where do you think Sony are going to be heading with regards trying to compete with cloud gaming? Do you think they'll sit back, or like VJ, do you think they're just going to watch the competition and kind of try and jump in when they can?
I'm absolutely there with Vijay. I mean, when was it when Sony signed the deal with Microsoft using the Azure servers?
It was about a year ago, wasn't it?
About a year ago. So,
I think so.
Yeah, you can bet that they started to work internally right at that point, if not before that, to bring it there. But I think for them it is really a danger, because in right now internally in Sony, the PlayStation the PlayStation department is really the moneymaker for the whole company. Yeah, so it is a significant gamble for them to go now and do the same as Microsoft does it. Yeah, and not rely on their on the reliable income that they have with the current strategy. Yeah, so I think that the point from Vijay is definitely valid. They have probably something more or less ready to go if that market explodes. They are globally seen a very popular brand. PlayStation is really connected in many countries with gaming. We have in Germany, when you say I play PlayStation, you don't particularly mean I play on a PlayStation. It's more like I play video games. It's really a synonym. Yeah, and I know in a couple of other countries, it's more likely the same. And for them, they really don't have to build up their own infrastructure. They rent the servers from Microsoft, and then if they launch some sort of service with their popular name behind it, they can easily enter that market. And I think they just play that wait and see game that they play so well over the last few months and years to see where this business with cloud streaming is going. There are so many different players in there. Amazon, Google, Nvidia is also in the same ballpark. They also have a very popular streaming service that I have heard many good things. I haven't tried it myself, but I have heard a lot of good things about it. So yeah, they probably just wait and see where the market will develop to bring in their name and all the brands and IPs that are so popular around the globe right now.
Yeah, they've certainly got that in their back pocket, and it is a very strong hand that they've got. They just need to implement it, I guess. But like you say, it feels like they're running out of time with all of these sort of streaming services popping up. But like I agree with VJ. In reality, that's not the case. They do have time to sit back, assess the market, and see what's going on. Flemish, just a quick one from you, then, if you don't mind. Do you think game streaming is the future, or do you think it's going to kind of die out because it's never really going to compete in any way with TV gaming, as it were, box under your TV?
I think for some people, like for me personally, that will never be the future. I will always like to be in my couch on my TV with my Xbox or my box or behind my PC.
Oh,
Like
that man of beer.
I don't like to use the streaming service like on my phone. I think it's a little bit clunky for me personally. But when I look at the wider market, I think it depends on like the market itself. Like in Japan and the Asian market, I think over there it will be much more popular than let's say in Europe, where we basically are mostly PlayStation, I would say. But I think overall, yeah, it depends on the person itself. I cannot say it will be the future. I think it's too early for that as well, because it is in its infancy still.
Yeah, it's very early days.
So I can see it growing, but if it's really gonna be the main norm, I think never. I think it will always be a secondary option for people, but I think it will take some like at least 5 years before we see where it goes.
Okay.
Like most things, it takes time to see if it works or not.
It does. It needs to mature. I guess from my perspective, it just seems strange that, like VJ said, that everyone's not just sitting back watching Microsoft do it and seeing how it goes, because Google have wanted to jump in, Amazon have wanted to jump in. So they've obviously done their market research. They obviously think there's a future in this, and they're not going to be able to produce the hardware like Microsoft and get the install base that they've already got. So,
But Flap, I think you made a really important point. If you don't mind me just
Yeah, go on.
chipping in for a second, I think the appetite for new gaming systems and gaming in general has never been greater or more ravenous, right? Regardless of the varied ecosystems on offer. And let's be honest, they're all pretty different. They're similar, but they're different. And I think that there will be a point of convergence where each company adopts and adapts certain strategies from the other in order to evolve. And I think that is where we are going. Because if Sony aren't thinking about the things that we are sitting here discussing, we should kick them out, and this panel should be recruited, right? But I think there's a really important point that you made earlier, that it just doesn't happen just like that. I know that people assume, and even me, I've been saying, look, it's just a flip of a switch, and it probably is, but it probably isn't. I will say it's easier said than done. Just by watching a Bruce Lee movie doesn't make you a kung fu expert.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree. And like you say, it takes years of infrastructure, software engineers to get all of this thing to work. Like you say, it's not just a switch. And I'm sure Microsoft, in their sales pitch when they're selling Azure, they make it sound like it's a simple service like that, but it's not going to be in reality. Puxley, can you see a future where you're subscribing to Amazon Luna, Google Stadia, PlayStation Now, if that's kind of a thing for the future? And do you think the future is multiple subscription services?
Very frank, I don't, because personally, I don't want to be tied into multiple different subscription services in the first place.
If they have unique content that you can't get anywhere else, a little bit like Amazon Prime and obviously Netflix, then you may have to if you want to play those games.
That's very true. In that scenario specifically, then, hypothetically, I would probably pick the one or maybe two at a stretch which had the most content I wanted to play. Mm-hmm. If a particular service only had, say, one or two titles which I really liked out of a library of 100 plus, I would probably forgo it, if I'm perfectly honest, because I'm not made of money, as I'm pretty much sure that everyone else isn't for the large majority. So, I mean, do I think cloud gaming is the future? I think it's a high possibility. But of course, there are plenty of places in the world that enjoy gaming which do not have a great internet infrastructure at all. So I don't think it's going to be the future for an awfully long time. I would give it more than 10 years until I think it potentially becomes anywhere mainstream. But I see it as a possibility. That's probably the best way to put it. But as Flamish said, I still, and I believe everyone else, or most people probably think this, I very much love, opening that box for the new time. You've got that new console smell, and you have that thing under your desk, under your bench or your TV unit or whatever, where, it just works. And, you can connect to the internet, play your games, download them if you have to. For me, as I've mentioned multiple times, I think the biggest thing for gaming at the moment should be, or one of the bigger things I should say, is storage capability, and how developers can try to keep file sizes down.
I was going to say, a box under your TV isn't without its downsides. Like you say, if games getting bigger, having download 100 GB game every time's a pain in the ass. And to be honest, game streaming, if you have that instant access to games, a little bit like we did last night, actually, Pucks, when we were playing golf with your friends, we didn't have to wait for you to download a 4.5 GB file. It was just there. So, yeah, can we finish this with the chat then, Pucks? Let's let the chat have the last say on this topic.
Yeah, sure thing. So there was some exchange earlier between our moderators, actually. So fun speculation. PlayStation should partner with Google, Amazon, or another large company with that infrastructure in place.
Yeah, I think that would be dangerous for Microsoft, wouldn't it?
But then as a counter comment to that, Fugly then says, but as a consumer that already owns a PlayStation, why would you sign up with Luna or Stadia to play the games on your console, or if you already pay for PlayStation Network, etc.?
Yeah, good point. Yeah.
And then there's another comment here from Kevin Allen. Thanks for tuning in. They say, I don't think Sony will build their own streaming service. I'm calling it now. They will eventually partner with one of the ones already up and running, Luna, Google, or even xCloud. You heard it here first.
I guess I think it was Fugly that sort of countered that. I guess, as Flemish was saying, there is no substitute for having that box natively under your TV and producing the highest quality images. So I guess the reason to buy a PlayStation is kind of still the same reason, to get that extra graphical fidelity and speed and stuff. But I guess over years, if game streaming actually starts competing with a box under your TV, then yeah, it could put all of them in a slightly precarious situation.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I mean, as you said earlier, we played golf with friends the other day, and I couldn't play on PC, but I could play through streaming. And for me, because I have I've paid for my internet, I pay for good enough internet to do it. I've got, here in the UK, we do have a good infrastructure for, to enable cloud streaming. But as what has been said before, and I've seen it in the chat as well, that a lot of people, from what I've seen in the chat, do not like the thought of paying multiple different subscription services for all these different cloud gaming platforms.
Yeah, but then appreciate that.
But then again, I suppose it then becomes a toss-up, I guess, between, do you have multiple competitors in the cloud streaming space, or do you almost have a monopoly?
Yeah,
that's another question, I guess.
And we see this in other fields, don't we? Like you say, Amazon Prime and Netflix being possibly the most obvious comparisons, but I'm sure there's others out there. Right, I'm going to round up the show now, if you don't mind, everyone. I've really enjoyed tonight's topics. When I was kind of writing them down, it's like, yeah, I think we're going to have some to and fro in with this one, because they're not always clear cut. Special big shout to the chat. My goodness me, we've got some people. When I said I'd like to hit 40, we actually hit 44 earlier. So really grateful for that, everyone tuning in. Sweshi, hi Sweshi, Dragon Wolf, Fugly, Indie Gamer, Fun Speculation. Obviously, special shout to Fun Speculation, Mr. Tushi and Fugly, because they are our guardians of the chat. Who else we've got? SX2, Pong Soul, Parksy. Great to see you in the chat. Stubbs, Wakanda, Dragon Wolf. If I've missed anyone, I do apologise. Pucks, do we know who's won the competition?
I do. While others were talking, I took the opportunity to very, very quickly find out. So just to be clear, because there was some chat that did happen prior to the show, so in order of fairness, I have based this from when we went live at 8 p.m. UK time. And I've got to find it on my list now. So the 300th comment, based on us starting at 8 p.m, was Carlos the Mara.
Excellent. Carlos the Mara. Now, I don't know if you follow me on Twitter, because I need to get you the code to do that. So hopefully, Carlos, you're still with us. And if you are yes, on Twitter,
in the chat, yeah,
it's excellent. If you can DM me, I will get you your code, my friend. So well done. Congratulations on that. Right. Well, thank you, everyone. It's been fantastic. I've really enjoyed tonight. We had a great panel. Archimedes, we'll start with you, my friend. Thank you for being with us. I know you're all high on painkillers, as you declared at the top of the show. So thank you for being with us. I really enjoy hearing you on Boom. And when I did, it's like, right, I absolutely need you on my show. So thank you for being here. Where can we find you on the socials? Tell us about your channel a little bit.
Yeah, first, thank you for having me, and thank you for the invite. It's been a pleasure here. It was a fantastic show. We had fantastic discussions. Really enjoyed it. Thank you for having me. You can find my channel at Boxenberger. Same on Twitter, Xbox Live, PlayStation Network, everywhere. But especially here on YouTube, you can follow my channel. It's not a gaming news channel per se. It's more a commentary channel on the video game industry. I upload about one video per week, which is around about 10 to 15 minutes long, where I go into a certain topic of the video game industry. Check that out, and if you like it, I would be happy for a sub, of course. Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, no problem. Well, it's a great channel, and you seem to tackle topics that no one else really seems to do. You come in at a slightly different angle, and I'm always very grateful to watch your video because you highlight certain aspects of certain arguments and discussions that I don't always think about natively. So no, it's really good. Flemish, where can we find you on the socials, my friend? Everyone seems to know you, Flemish. You've been around a little while.
Yeah, I've been around since end of May, and I started YouTube and podcasting then. It's been a great journey so far. I mean, for those few months, I think I'm really starting to pick up a little in the community, and I want to thank everyone for that. You can find me on my YouTube, Flemish. Where I'm holding off to do a show right after this one, because I basically scheduled it a little bit later because of the show. I think it's a fair point to do that sometimes.
So we all need to head over to your show after this then.
Yeah, you can head over there.
Excellent. Well, we all need to do that then.
Yeah, you can also find me on Twitter. It's in the description. I checked it. My name is too hard to pronounce.
Go on, tell us. Just give us a blast anyway. Go on.
Gregory Gooivaart. That's how you say it in Flemish. Clowns is always like it's a little game we have when we do 4GQ TV, which I started a few weeks ago with him on Four Guys with Quarters, their channel. And he always tries to pronounce my name but always fails.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. So, excellent. Thank you. VJ, you always bring the fire. I know that's a boom term, but I can't think of a better one if I'm honest. I always, I love having you on the show. I was so pleased when you said you would be a regular panel member, because you come at us with stats and figures and stuff, and as gamers we are a passionate bunch, and sometimes we do let our passions probably rule our senses sometimes, and you always bring the sensibility back to the argument, and I'm really grateful for that, because that's where the argument is at the end of the day. So thank you for being here. Where can we find you on the socials?
I was going to say, you say sensibilities. I think quite a few people think it's cynicism.
But they would think that sometimes, because obviously we're coming from the point of being a fan of this particular thing, but that doesn't make your points any less accurate.
I appreciate that, Phil. Sorry for going on too much on.
No, not a problem. You didn't.
Sometimes I like to give a 360 viewpoint before I make the point. So sorry about that. But yeah, no, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it, and thanks for having Flemish on, because I've never spoken to him before. And obviously, Archimedes, it's just like sitting with him on. I thought, we're doing a tour of the world. We just need to do one more podcast together in Asia, global map. And it was really great to have Puxley, because I just think he brings just really calming, refreshing, and good vibe and energy to the show. And thanks for being our host for that.
Yeah, no problem. So you're Viewpoint Gaming on Twitter, at Viewpoint Gaming?
Yeah, you can find me there, or they can contact you, because I think you're just as much my agent these days as Boom is.
Yes, possibly, I guess. But it's always a pleasure, VJ. And Puxley, yeah, VJ's correct. You are my wingman. This show would not be the same without you, my friend. I'm always grateful to have you by my side on this, and help keep things running along. Because when you're sat at the helm, it's kind of you've got so many plates spinning that you lose track of things. I don't know how Boom does it on his own, if I'm honest. I have no idea. So grateful for your input, Pux. And again, you bring lots of perspectives. You're a PlayStation and you're a PC gamer. We've all got our own different perspectives, so I appreciate yours as well. So where can we find you on the socials?
Well, I very much appreciate the feedback, guys. Very, very much. I try my best behind the scenes to try and keep things. I do stuff behind the scenes, believe it or not. That's why I don't talk too often, for those who may be wondering. Before I do give my handle, actually, I would like to just very, very quickly announce that at GamePass Gaming have now recently set up an Xbox Club using the Xbox Club service. So outside of these live shows, if you would like to chat with each other or participate in gaming with each other, and something that we'd like to potentially do tournaments in the future as well, you can find that on Xbox Clubs by typing in GamePass Gaming. You can do that on the console directly, or you can do it on PC via the Xbox Console Companion app. Just search GamePass Gaming under Xbox Clubs, and you can see us there. Ask us for an invite, and we'll add you.
Or you can friend us, so you can friend Flap, and we'll send you an invite. And the same with Puxley.
And that too, yep. So have you got on the screen there? So I am at PuxleyAR on Twitter, or just Puxley on Xbox.
Excellent. Well, we'd like to see, we wanted the chat to carry on if possible. It's not, it's not just about playing games with everyone. It's nice for our little community that we've managed to build, and that, it's built up of every single one of you guys in the chat and that's been listening. We're so grateful for it. We really do have a good community. We don't have any ne'er-do-wells in there. And if you guys want to carry on chatting afterwards, I know it's a small community. Everyone kind of knows everyone anyway, but there are some new members coming in, and it's just a place where everyone can chill out, ask questions and stuff. So, thank you very much, everyone. It's been an absolutely great show. I've loved every second of this. We'll do it again next week, obviously. Got a special guest coming in next week, so I'm excited for that one as always. And without any further ado, thanks for listening, and we'll see you then. Goodbye.